Right, so I'll call the meeting to order. I guess the reminder about cell phones and not talking amongst yourself is standard practice and well, we don't warn anybody else, so. Mr. CAO, do we have quorum?
We have quorum, your worship.
Okay, are there any members of council who need to declare conflict of interest on any items on the agenda this evening? Okay, so we've all had a chance to look at the agenda. Are there any changes required to this evening's agenda? All right, it would now take a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have a mover? Let's see. Seconder, Ivy. Ready for the question?
Question.
Now proceed with the vote. All those in favor of adopting the agenda in its current form, show your consent by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carried. We don't have minutes for this one.
No, a special meeting. So
we'll move to bylaws, motions, resolutions.
So there are four topics on the agenda, but three in the open session. The first one is transfer to reserves. The service manager and myself have been scouring over the books to kind of give us an idea where we'll finish off the year. Currently, we're looking at potentially a $65,000 surplus. We obviously don't want to not transfer money to the reserves, because by keeping it and not declaring it, it doesn't enable us to be able to use it if ever we need it for any initiatives next year, like we talked during budget deliberation, whether it be brush cutting or initiatives like that. So normally we would make a recommendation to transfer to capital reserves first, but we would want to maximize whatever we can put in the operations before putting capital in the capital reserves. We are allowed to put up to 5% of our last year's operating budget in operational reserves. So we would always make a recommendation to maximize that amount before putting any money in capital reserves. That just enables us to have cash on hand, or if ever we need to do anything that would not be considered capital. We obviously are waiting on a couple invoices at the start of the year, and I don't want to start talking very boringly about cash flows and stuff like that, but we would like to hang on to around a $15,000 buffer for cash flow reasons at the start of the year. So we feel comfortable with transferring or recommending to transfer an amount of $45,000 to the operational reserves, meaning that if we finish where we anticipate finishing and no surprises of expenses, we should finish with around a $15,000 to $20,000 surplus once we do financial audits.
Okay.
So if the surplus is 60, maybe like could we move, so you're looking to move some into the operational reserve only,
Yeah, which would be about 45.
and so that's up to 60. So
Yes.
the remaining 50 would in 2 years from now
Would be declared second year surplus. That's correct.
What if you had half of 30?
We can, we can. The question is, yes, we can. We just feel that having the funds available right now it gives us greater flexibility than waiting in another 2 years to put it on our operational budget.
Because you can make the argument either way that we don't know what's going to happen in 2 years from now. So we may have an even bigger surplus then. So it could be a moot point. So you're just timing when money's available versus when you're sort of hedging it and when you're just going to defer it. And so you can sort of look at it either way.
Yeah.
So what would be the advantage to putting it in the capital reserve instead of the operating reserve.
So the capital reserve, we can only use it for capital expenditures.
Right.
So assuming, we want to renovate this hall, just for instance, and, we want to subdivide it, add partitions, it's an improvement to a capital asset. We can use it for capital only. Assuming that we'd want to do an initiative where, and again, this is just an argumentative, we'd want to do a branding exercise, logo development. It's not in the budget. We can't use capital reserve for that because it's not a capital asset, but you could transfer money from operational reserve to be able to do an initiative like that.
So again, though, what would be the advantage to putting it in operating reserves and putting it in capital reserve?
The advantage is it's cash flow immediately. You could still use it for capital.
It's like general, it's
Yes.
not, fund accounting, the money's linked to what it's in, so like, general is just like the operating reserve, there's based ultimate flexibility.
There's more flexibility.
Great, that's what I'm understanding, so I'm trying to understand what advantage there is to put less in the operating reserve and instead put it in the capital reserve. I'm trying to understand why you
you ever do capital, just.
why you would want, I'm trying to understand why you would want to put it in capital instead of operating. That's what I'm trying to understand.
When you're maximized at the 5%, then you would optimize, and put it in the capital reserves.
You're still not answering my question.
So
I
you're
think-
saying because there's a maximum that you're allowed putting
In operational.
every year. So like if you max out operations and you want to reserve more, you would then have to go into a subordinate fund. So he's just saying, if we wanted it to do anything, we could take it out of the operational reserve first on branding, and you can even move it to capital because it's not bound to anything.
That's correct.
But if it's a capital, it has to be like a physical asset.
Right, so I guess what I'm trying to understand is what advantage do you see to us putting less in operating and more in capital?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'm saying put zero with capital and only because like,
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Just-
I thought you were wanting to put it all, like, put more in capital.
because like,
Okay.
just as a thought, exercise, if like we were to put none in, we're talking about, that's half a cent on
Next 2 years time.
2 years is half a cent. So if like we had some type of policy where if like we had a surplus, I don't know if a policy is necessary, but I'm just kind of using that just kind of off the top here, but percentage would go into, we would not reserve it to give kind of tax relief to Maple Hills, and we maybe only put a smaller percentage, even half, into operations. So that's why I'm saying, if you estimate 60, we could do 30. And if we did 30 this year and say the same thing happened next year, that'd be 60,000 in reserve.
Now, I'm just gonna add, you have the flexibility when you're building the budget in your revenue sources of financing your budget with transfers to reserve. So by not transferring it, it will be an automatic second year surplus. By transferring it, it gives us flexibility to fund any type of activity. And if we feel instead of raising taxes, we can add to the revenues by doing a transfer from operational reserves.
So you can take an operational surplus into revenue.
Yes,
So,
on a budget year.
so then like theoretically, we can also have a policy where if an operating surplus ever exceeded 100,000, for example, it automatically goes as a tax relief or something like that.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
My only recommendation would be is a surplus and a deficit is not a guarantee. It's not a surplus, it's not a guarantee. So
Yes.
if it's always in the budget and it doesn't happen the next year, it becomes a surprise either for an expense or a revenue. So I'm trying to, my recommendation would be to not become dependent on surpluses. That if we can maximize reserves, it gives us flexibility if we need to do any type of initiatives on the operation side that we can pick from it. And then if there's any capital investments that we need to do, originally, if you remember, we had put a 15,000 that we'd forego this year that we'll put next year, but that'll go to the capital reserves next year, right? So it just gives us greater flexibility to be able, if we transfer right away, it's like, it's immediate cash flow in a sense versus a we only get to spend it in the second year surplus.
Yeah. As long as you mean we're willing to look at in the future, the possibility of if the reserve is growing, then we want to give some tax relief as long as that's something.
That is completely.
As long as that's, you know, the appetite of
Now,
the house, so I can get behind the 41.
the operational reserve will be maxed at 5% of your budget.
Yes,
It's not 5% every year accumulated, it's 5%. So on a budget of $1 million, it's 50,000. On a budget of 3 million, it's 150. So on the 150, next year it might go to 160, 170. So you're not putting as much, but that at least gives you a minimum of $0.01 to $0.015 if it's completely maxed, right?
Okay,
yeah, no,
so,
Sorry,
oh, sorry,
there's something you said something I failed to understand. So let's say like your argument, we cut it down to 30. What happens to the other 30?
The other 30 basically stays in our bank account. Once they close the books for the year, it'll be called a surplus, which we'll have to input as a revenue in next year, 2025.
So it's sitting there, but you can't use it.
In theory, I can't use
Sitting there and not gaining capital, not gaining
no interest, no
no
nothing.
interest on it.
It's not working for you. It's in our bank account. It's there and it's technically earmarked as revenue that I can put in the budget in 2 years.
so then the next question, so, would the reserve be invested, like, would it be like GIC, would it be some type of financial insurance that you would?
I believe there's some sort, it's in a savings account, so there are interests that can be, correct me if I'm wrong, you're allowed to generate interest from.
so everybody's comfortable with the 45 then? Okay.
So I will remove the motion for capital, if you're okay,
Okay,
and then you can do the motion, so we're not tripping over.
yeah, one versus the other, okay. Mark, will you read the motion?
Be it resolved that 45,000 be transferred to the operating reserve fund. These funds will come from the general operating fund.
Second.
Okay. Are we ready for the question? We'll now proceed with the vote. All those in favor of transferring 45,000 to the operating reserve fund, further consent by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. So carried.
So the next topic on the agenda is on the procurement side for the new facility. The current thresholds of contract that I can, or purchases that I can approve is up to $10,000. So to procure assets for the new office space, there was going to originally be 4 separate quotes. There was going to be one for tables, another one for chairs, one for AV, and one for millwork for the kitchen. But once we made the decision to acquire and bring it back to the original scope, the millwork is now part of the scope of the project. So we don't need to motion for that. It's part of the current construction contract. So we would need 3 separate motions to award the 3 different contracts that we asked quotes for. We separated the tables and chairs. You might have asked, why did you separate the tables and chairs? We felt that we could get a better competitive price by separating the tables and the chairs. To give you a bit of an overview of what we had budgeted originally in the startup budget for the debenture. So we had budgeted to, excuse me. We had budgeted for office tables and chairs, 39,550. plus HST. On the office chairs, did I say office tables first or office chairs? I apologize. For the first number I gave you, 39,550, is for the office tables. For the office chairs, it was 26,750. And on the AV, it was 70 plus HST. I want to raise 2 points. We had, when we prepared this initial budget, we had not yet received confirmation on our RDC grant. The debenture that we applied for was for 250,000, but then we received confirmation that RDC are going to recover up to 50%, up to a maximum of 117,500, which gives us greater flexibility in the budget on the AV side, because we had discussed that we wanted to do live streaming, which the original quote did not include live streaming, strictly audio, TVs for presentation and speakers of that sort. So of the 3 quotes that we received for the furniture side, the lowest quote received was from Atlantic Business Interiors. You notice there's an asterisk there because lower down in their quote, you'll see in the quotes that were provided, there was a fuel surcharge that wasn't the second lowest bidder. And on the chair side, Office Interiors actually finished with the lower of the quote. So we're in line with the furniture quotes in terms of budget. Same thing for chairs. We have some savings on the chair side. We had actually budgeted a bit more than that, but the price came back more competitive than we anticipated. Just so you know, the reason that we're asking for a contingency on the furniture side, obviously we provided drawings to each company so they could do a sort of CAD installation of furniture. But once you do a walkthrough, there's one of the offices that might have a steel column in there that doesn't show up on the plan. So because they don't show up on the plans, there's maybe a need to reconfigure the office. And the reason that we're asking for a contingency is if there's a difference in price, we don't have to come back to council to make those changes and get another resolution. So our recommendation for the furniture and the chairs would be to, on the furniture side, would be to award it to the lowest quote, which was from Atlantic Business Interiors for 36,383 and 36 cents plus HST. And on the chair side would be for Office Interiors for 17,389 at 80 cents plus HST. On the AV side, our recommendation would be to go ahead with Ivan's AV. They are the most reputable company. They do a lot of the council chambers in Greater Moncton. They have a speciality in setting up those types of rooms. The main factor for us by recommending Ivan's AV has to do with the service side. I've used Ivan's AV for the past 5 years at my former municipality, and we use a different supplier. When you have a council meeting at 6 o'clock on a Monday night or 7 o'clock, you call them 15 minutes before the meeting, they show up. It might not be the same with other suppliers. Our experience although they say they'll be available, it's not really always the case. So we've gotten great service from Ivan, so that's why we would recommend moving forward with the quotes from Ivan's. So I've presented the 3. I know that you might have questions. I'm free to answer any question.
So the grant
Yes.
will cover, so that those 3 together total roughly 56. So the grant would cover half of that?
Would cover, so when you look at all the startup expenses that we have, we had a budget of close to around 250. They'll cover 50% of everything that we purchase up to 117,500. So assuming that we only spend 200,000, they'll only give us 100. If we spend 250, they'll give us 117,500.
So,
And if we spend more, at the end of the day, I think we need to talk about the debenture. So if, assuming that everything comes at 250, our debenture will be 250 minus 117. So it'll be less than the 250 that we applied for. So the payment will be less, the impact on taxpayers will be less, but it gives us that flexibility. If we want to do the live streaming and other types of initiatives. like
right,
that.
so I guess the question is, at this, what we're approving here right now, we're actually only gonna be on the hook for what happened.
For now, yes,
Right,
yes. There are other things that, again,
Yes,
that there's stuff that I, will need, the blinds, we'll need, it's minuscule stuff, but, fridge, a stove, a fridge, dishwasher, microwave, toaster oven, garbage cans, pots, pans, I should say pots, pans, but there's other items that we had put in on our list that we need to obviously acquire. So we think it'll be close to the 250. There are savings that are going to happen in here. We also did built in a contingency, and this price includes full HSD, which we recuperate part of that as well. So I think the original amount of the debenture of 250 will be less than what we'll borrow. But it'll be more than what we're talking about today.
sure, I guess I was just trying to establish so that
So-
nobody forgot that. That's good.
Buy basically a credit, and then you get the money.
We pay for it. We file a claim to get reimbursed through RDC, and then they send us a check.
Then you get the debenture.
Well, once we've purchased everything, then we convert the short-term loan to a 5-year debenture. So we need to buy everything before we can convert it to a debenture.
And so the credit will be put against the debenture. Like if we get half back, you can just put.
Yes, 100%. So obviously we need to, our cash flow can't cover this right now.
Right, no.
So we have the ministerial order, so we'll open up a line of credit. We budgeted for that in this year's budget. Once we make the purchases, it'll go on the line of credit. Then we'll convert the line of credit to a debenture, and then the line of credit no longer exists.
So do you feel that? So, I just want to say this. Do you feel that what you're buying, like, I don't really need, I don't personally feel the need to go through every line item on this. It was budgeted. Obviously, you got quotes. Trust your discretion. Do you feel that this is quality enough where, every year we're not like spending massive amounts of money
Oh,
on
100%.
like new equipment, like,
Yeah.
I have a buddy who owns a moving company. And he has had some contracts where he's cleaned out offices where he's like, I
Yeah.
can't really do this. And I just don't want to turn into that.
Yeah, on the office equipment side, it's not like going, and it's not to discredit, it's not like going to a box store, buying a set there, it's pressed wood, and install it. It's not that type of quality. It's more, I don't want to say institutional type, but it's more rugged. It's the same type of, it's the same type of materials they would put in universities, schools. Commercial spaces, government office buildings, like it's a higher grade quality of an asset.
And then if hypothetically, like, let's just say 5 years, 8 years from now, there's new chairs that are wanted, desks, whatever. Could we look at maybe policy where we don't just hire a moving company to just dump it, where we can actually put it up on marketplace or whatever and take that money and
We have a policy right now on how to dispose of assets. I would say that the quality of furniture and chairs that we're looking to purchase would be a 15 to 20-year type quality product. Obviously chairs, mechanical components to it, yeah, cylinders, there might be a need to change one chair or two chairs. It wouldn't, the type of chairs we're buying has been on the market for a couple of years, you can get the one off, you can have it reupholstered, like. Best example, the type of chairs we're buying would be similar in quality when the brown chairs we have upstairs. They last forever, you can reupholster them. They don't look like that. That's not what I'm saying.
15, 20 sounds great. 50 years.
So they better quality type furniture. It's not something that you would buy at a regular box store and you hope they last a couple of years. So it's more institutional type.
So looking at the quotes, basically number 1 and number 2 for both the chairs and the furniture in general. Were those specs the exact same?
Yes,
Is it the
yes,
same quality product?
yes. Same. How could
I want to
I?
make sure that for the.
Like even to the point where this is the configuration we want, you get your CAD guys to fit it in based on the equipment that you have. If you look at the drawings that are proposed, there's not drawings for the third because I figured that it wouldn't be, it's the same type of configuration. But if you look at the first two, the configurations are very similar, but the armoire might be moved that way, that cabinet might be on that wall versus that wall.
My question was to go with, price between built quality is the exact same.
Yes, the standards are the same. We requested, again, institutional. No, we didn't ask for, like we said, because these are companies that regular quote for, institutions, universities, government type office contracts. And we said we want the exact same quality that you would quote offices like that.
No, is that for like audience chairs?
Yes. Yes, so what would be included is 4 offices, the lunchroom table, 10 council tables. So if you've been to the Regional Service Commission, at Plan 360, or not at Plan 360, at Ecos, I think you've been to. So it's sort of like a modular style table with a modesty panel in front. It'll make the room more modular in a sense where if we want to change the configuration to do a stadium seating, or we want to do a square table, or it also includes a podium, obviously when someone comes to present. So it includes those 10 tables, it includes 10 council room tables to go with the 10 tables, and 50 chairs for audience and whatnot. Why 50? Well, there's 10 that are going in the lunchroom. There's 8 that are going in each office. There'll be like the side chair in each office. And then 32 will be going in council chambers. So it gives us, by buying all the same ones, if ever we want to change the configuration, we have all the same chairs in various locations in towns.
Anything else? Okay.
Yep. Be it resolved that council proceed with the purchase of office furniture, tables, and desks for Atlantic Business Tiers. $36,000, so $36,383.36 plus HST, with an added contingency of $5,000 plus HST.
You have a seconder?
Second.
You ready for the question? We'll now proceed with the vote. All those in favor of excuse me, accepting the quote from Atlantic Business Interiors for $36,383.36, show your consent by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. So carried. Councillor Murray, would you read the next?
Be it resolved that council proceeds with the purchase of office chairs from Office Interiors for the quoted amount not exceeding $17,389.80 plus HST.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Are you ready for the question?
Question.
I'll proceed with the vote. All those in favor of accepting the quote from Office Interiors for the office chairs, show your consent by saying yes. All those opposed, no. So carried. So Esther, would you read the last one?
Be it resolved that council proceed with the purchase of fuel equipment from Ivan's AV for council chambers for the quoted amount not exceeding 102,805.90 plus HST with a contingency amount of 5,000 plus HST.
Second.
Are we ready for the question?
Question was.
All those in favor of accepting the quote for Avon's Ivan for the audiovisual building, show your consent by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Carried.
So the next topic on the agenda is circular materials. And I apologize for those who received a meeting notification for today. It was sent by error on my cell phone. That meeting was held during the committee of the whole earlier in October. We had the privilege of having Sebastian Holper, the Director of Solid Waste, kind of answer any questions on circular materials. We have until December 18th to notify circular materials of our intent, whether of opting in or opting out of the offering.
Which month, sorry?
December 18th, yeah. Currently, the majority of councils in the region are going to the council next week. Some of them have chose to opt out. I would say the larger ones, Riverview and Dieppe are leaning towards opting out. Moncton has already expressed opting out. But the smaller municipalities, Shediac had their council meeting on Monday, they decided to opt in. Kapakadi, Memramcook, Salisbury are all recommending to opt in to the agreement. With the Regional Service Commission likely taking over collection in 2025, it would make sense to maintain or have supplemental revenue come from opting in. So during the budget process, we deliberated it, we put an amount in as revenues that we were thinking of opting in. So that money has been budgeted as revenue for 2024. So we would just need a motion as per our recommendation to opt into.
Councilor Fish.
Just curiosity, and do they feel does ACO 360 feel that the three larger municipality opting out will affect, that we get from?
It's a standard offer.
Okay.
The offer will not change.
Okay, when we last discussed this, I remember it was like a double two-pronged thing where I remember I asked for an estimate of legal, like what would be our, like what's a possibility of a opt-in, there's penalties. And that's what
The contamination.
Correct. So this recommendation is us opting in. It's gonna have strict contamination targets. There's penalties. And there's a burden of program implementation and other legal risk.
Yeah.
Recommendation.
So at the meeting that Sebastian came, he talked about that. The application of the contamination levels will not come into force until 18 months down the road. So by the time the contamination levels are starting to be calculated, the contract will no longer be collected by us. It'll be collected by the Regional Service Commission.
So can I just add to
Yeah,
that?
sure.
When you asked those questions, those were based on the opt-out options. It was if Circular Materials did the collection, they were the ones that were very vague about.
Right, that's what I meant. It was like two-pronged, like one, we opt out and then there was another opt-in around.
So
This and the other one.
the opt-out was where it was vague about what those penalties might be and how they might be enforced. The opt-in was, it went through the Service Commission So they would manage it, and then if they felt that it was a high level, they would work with the municipalities to try to fix it. And it would be a stepped, the way he explained it was that it would be a step by step, we would have to get a ways before they would ever consider it being fine.
And the 18
If
months,
they just work with us.
What do we have in writing to that end?
it's in the standard contract.
That was what you said last time, right? Yeah.
Yes. And if we opted out, there was no revenue stream on circular material.
Zero revenue,
Back.
and we do not control the collection of blue materials.
And they said, so essentially there's two sets.
So it's two separate vehicles. It could be on two separate days.
If there's a problem with your garbage, you call this company. If there's a problem with your green or clear, you call Eco 360.
So with the burden of program implementation,
Okay.
The material- oh, go ahead.
Eco 360 taken on the burden.
sorry, mixing it up.
No, it's okay,
I
but
remember it.
a lot of that gets straightened out at the meeting, and I don't think you were able to make that one. So yeah, Eco 360 is shouldering the burden of education and implementation.
The only other thing is. So you know that these new municipalities like. You know, Butternut, are they opting in? Like, I don't know what other people are doing, but
I spoke to the CEO from Butternut. They are thinking of opting in. They have serious financial pressures. They're even thinking of reducing the level of service. Where they would only pick up the garbage every 2 weeks. So obviously they are no longer responsible for the blue bag, so they would look at ways of reducing costs where they would only pick up the white and the green every 2 weeks. So it is a model that we could look at, but I think council did not want to reduce the level of service. And create the lesser of instability for the residents. So the lesser instability for the resident was maintaining or opting in, where we get to control when they're picked up at the same cycle. There's no reduction of cost of picking it up would not be reduced. So by opting in, we get revenue to offset them picking up or us picking up the blue bag for that.
so my last question with my time here is, so if hypothetically. They determine that the contamination levels are high in Maple Hills, they would contact us to that end and say, you're at this percentage and it's supposed to be at this percentage. We would then have to communicate to the residents.
That is
how
correct.
they should do
So
it. or-
actually, at the meeting, what they said was they would attempt to identify the area that was the problem.
Like the neighborhood or.
And then they would try to work with the neighborhood, and Sebastian said like they weren't even opposed to actually going to people's houses and saying,
Here's a flyer.
can we help you understand this better? But not just saying, here's your fine, sorry about your luck, figure out how to fix it, actually saying, we want this to work right, so shoulder the burden.
There was also some things about, not to cut chat on, there's also some stuff that they would have material for instead of Chanel having to make up material.
Balance.
Tags, you know, some of those other stuff they handle, or the stuff for social media for her to post and everything. It's like they're gonna try to really help with the education.
Thanks. We will do our best to educate our residents as well. If the gap is not there through the mediums that we have. We have goals of coming out with a newsletter, so we'll add those in our marketing pieces as well to educate the residents, but the RSC has great tools right now that will help us with implementation of education to residents.
Councilor Rand.
No, it's just a general question on this one. If this was, we decide to go through with this. For some reason on the road, it's not working with what it should be. What was the date?
2020, it's a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
So you can trial it and we'll see.
It's probably gonna be a year and a half before we know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what.
No, I was just gonna add another thing, but like they seem like more willing, these people seem more willing to deal with us. So it's even, I think he brought up like diapers and cat litter were supposed to be picked up like every week, and they made a change to be like, okay, people can't leave a stinky diaper out in the back deck for, 2 weeks type of thing while we're waiting for it, so.
Previously, like what he's referring to used to be thrown in the white bag.
Yeah.
And then the RSC says we can't ask people to have that type of material on their own. So we'll add it to the green bag. It's creating a greater contamination level, but with the 3-prong separation, it's actually still creating a better compostable product that they sell to the market. So yes, it necessitates, it requires some hand picking of diapers by staff in the green materials, but it's actually, I'm told, makes great compost, so, or whatever's in the diaper makes good compost.
So I will add to that, the other municipalities outside of the southeast, their service commissions do not do the level of recycling and, they don't have all the programs we do. So some municipalities that opted out and went with circular materials, they really didn't have anything going on already. But for us, Eco 360 actually recycles more than circular materials. So if we were to send the blue bags in their current form to circular materials, our contamination level would have been higher because there's stuff that they're not going to recycle that gets recycled today. So it was actually for us to opt out, it's actually recycling less than we are right now in a program that's supposed to be designed to do more recycling than what's happening today.
And in theory, everything that goes in the blue bag right now generates revenue for the RSC. So we had a meeting last week where the Regional Service Commission said that the loss of revenue for losing that component of recyclables, it's a volatile market. Yes, it's not always the same price. They're talking about $4 million a year that they would lose in revenue. So by us getting part of that revenue, they're losing revenue, which will increase expenses in the bill there as well. So it's actually a double hit. We're actually saving on the collection side, but we're actually going to help us offset some of the cost of the increase on the Eco 360 side as well.
Any other questions on this side? Councilor Savoy, would you make the motion?
Be it resolved that council opt in to continue managing recycling service as per proposal from Circular Materials for the new provincial recycling framework.
We have a seconder. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of opting in on the new recycle program, show your consent by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. Okay. Right, at this time, we are, the next item is a closed session, so
Just need to make sure to take it.
You can all leave now. Bye.
So we charge for off during the closed session.
And we need a second. Yeah, we need to vote.
Second.
Second.
Yeah.
Me.
sorry, we ready for the question?
My question.
Now proceed with the vote. All those in favor of moving to the closed session, show your consent by saying yes. All those opposed, no.